Good morning, YouTube. It's 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas. And if we're rolling in a piece of wood, that means we are doing another table project. So a couple of weeks back, maybe even a couple of months ago, we did a crayon table. And it was such a big hit at work, and the person I gave it to, somebody else requested one. And I wanted to do something different, so today we're going to do a glitter metallic neon and pastel colored or pearl colored crayons. So, love these crayon tables. They're so cool. I love making them. Every time we do an iteration of the table, they come out a little bit better. Go back and watch my first crayon table I ever did on the channel. I thought it was really, really cool, but it was kind of wonky. I ended up giving that table away at like a garage sale. But we're doing better and better stuff with these projects. So, it is a little bit of cheating because the actual tabletop that I'm using is prefabricated, so there is a bit of cheating when it comes to that, I guess. So not true like woodwork craftsman, but you know, if you're a woodworker or creative in any kind of way, you know, you take some stuff that you can take and then just make it better. So nothing wrong with that. So here we are, we got the router out, and now we're just gonna do a cool swirl kind of pattern with it. And I learned from the last time that I needed to make the actual swirl a little bit bigger, because what ended up happening with the last one was I was having to force the crayons in there. So I'm not sure if I do it in this one, but I'll have to go back and do like a second pass, and I think I don't show that on the video. But that's what we ended up having to do with this one, was just making the actual river of crayons a little bit wider. And here we are just cleaning it up, and now you can actually see the swirl itself. It looks really cool, actually. I like this pattern. It's kind of just like in the middle, and then it just gets a little bit bigger and bigger as the pattern goes on the outer edges. So then we picked up this fence post. This is actually like, I think it's a stairway post. And every time I cut one of these things, I think that there's going to be a piece of metal in there, and I like jump 4 or 5 feet off the damn table every time I do that. I forget when I did this table. I want to say maybe October, November maybe. And you guys are probably watching this in April. Well, you guys are watching this in April now, but man, this was like months and months and months ago. Can't remember exactly when I did it. So went real crazy with the glue. Did wood glue, and then came back and hit it with some hot glue just to keep everything nice and sealed. And then we're going to come back and then just make the table legs for this portion of it. And every time I've done these tables, in spite of how much I measure and how many that I've actually done, I have to come back and kind of like take a little bit more material off the actual length of the post itself, because it ends up being like a bar top sometimes when I'm adding way too much material on the actual post itself there. But this part, you know, pretty easy breezy. Just adding some glue, taking a deck screw, and then just coming back and making the legs of this. And you know, the hardest part about doing this is just getting everything like even. So you know, in spite of how you set it up, you get a little bit of wobbling when you kind of do that. And now we're just taking the torch, and now we're just gonna like bring out that wood grain. This is, you know, the first table that I did, I didn't end up burning it, but I just love the way pine, you know, because pine is like a plain, boring kind of wood, and you just got to come back and hit it with, you know, the torch, and that really makes that pop. And you got to do the same thing on the tabletop itself too. People tend to like this aesthetic a little bit better. If I get you know, a little bit more creative, you know, come up with something different other than burning it, but it looks really cool. And especially when you put the actual tabletop epoxy on there, it ends up looking a lot cooler. So as long as you're not burning down the house, everything tends to go well. And I'm guessing I did this back in August or October because the grass is still green. So some of the other projects you guys are watching, it's like super cold, like December-ish. But once we got that all, you know, burnt the way that we wanted to, now we're just coming back and making sure everything else is even. So here I am again with the glue. Not that that glue is going to make a whole lot of a difference, but once you put the deck screws in there, it definitely holds up. It's just, the glue is just, I guess, for my peace of mind, more or less. And that went in there just nice and flush. Coming back, hitting it again on all sides, and now we're nice and even. So this is what it looks like before we start adding the crayons to it. And now this is what it looks like after we're going to add the crayons. So just like in the previous tabletop video, if you put the crayons in the freezer for a couple of days, it makes taking off the actual wrapping a little bit easier. So I picked up all the cool orange, not the orange, but the bright colors on this. And you can see the little flakes of crayon as well that are on there. And I learned that from the previous video. adding a little bit of crayon, not adding it intentionally, but like once you hit the actual crayon off of the actual cardboard that you're cutting them on, it makes this cool flaking type of effect. And here I am taking some Gorilla Glue spray, because what I don't want to have happen is have that float. And what I ended up noticing was that, it really didn't make any kind of a difference. If you really want to get a real cool aesthetic with the actual flake itself, adding a couple of layers of epoxy is the key. So here all we're doing is got all the crayons into the little crevices that we want, and now we're just coming over that first layer of epoxy and getting everything sealed in, because what you don't want to have happen is if you add all the epoxy, it's all going to float. So once we did that, now we're just coming off, taking the clamps off. The epoxy's dried on that first initial layer, and now we're just going to come back and keep adding layer after layer. And this part becomes a little bit more difficult because you want everything to be nice and even, because if it's not, the epoxy's going to run, and then you're just chasing it, putting shims and everything underneath the table legs, what makes it a little bit more difficult. So here we are adding the epoxy. If you're curious about which epoxy we're using East Coast resin. This epoxy sets up really well. And I want to say that, this first layer, everything stayed nice and even. I'm having to come back, make more pints of this and pouring this all over the table as well. And then we're just coming back with the torch, popping all the bubbles. And that's really it's not really a headache, I guess is the wrong term to say, but that's really where, the work comes in, is just getting the tabletop epoxy, get all the bubbles out of it. That's usually the big thing. And then you just have to watch it a couple of times to let it, come to the surface, and just pop them with a heat gun or the torch. I have a heat gun. I prefer to use the torch. I think that's a little bit more effective, and who doesn't like to play with fire? So that's always a bonus. So here we are, just adding that last edge of it, and I just usually let it run off. I don't do anything special as far as wiping it down or taking a squeegee or anything like that. I just let it float and let gravity do most of the work. So once I was happy with that initial layer, then we just come back, and now we're just going to do take a foam brush and then just epoxy the entire table. This table, this one isn't going to go outside. I believe this one, the person I made it for, is going to keep it indoors, but it's always nice in case they spill something or anything like that. And it just seals the wood a little bit better, so in case later on they do want to put it outside, it'll be pretty much weatherproof with the epoxy. The water will just kind of just beat off of that. And I get the fence posts, I get the legs, everything like that. And now I believe we're coming back and just adding that last layer. So now that all the epoxy's on there and dried, then I come back and add the last layer of epoxy, and just pretty much rinse and repeat the same previous process. And you can see how cool this looks. It's just the flake portion of it, the nice bright colors. Really fun table. Really love making these. Probably going to make another one here in the summer. Like I said, I did this probably right at the end of the summer last year, 2022, and then you guys are watching this in April of 2023. But love how this looks. You can see the shine on there. I did a little bit of wood wax and polish on the top. You can see all those cool little flakes. If I can get my camera to focus, looks really, really cool. I love how this turned out. Gorgeous, gorgeous table. It's simple, yes, but at the same time, it looks really cool. And I have another idea for another tabletop that I'm going to do, kind of in the same theme as this one, but it's not involving crayons, but it does involve some bright colors, and we might get fancy with it and do some LED lights too. But really love how clear this epoxy is. So if you guys need epoxy on a budget, East Coast resin would definitely recommend. That's the type of epoxy that I used on this project. Really happy with it. Been using that epoxy for about 4 years now. Haven't had any kind of real issues with it that I would say. If you do have issues, it's the user, it's not the epoxy, and I had to learn that a couple of hard lessons. But overall, really happy how this table turned out. Hopefully, as it starts to warm up here in Texas, summer and spring are really table making season, because the epoxy sets up a lot better. But hope you guys like this. Hope you guys got something out of it. Yeah, we did a table a little bit a while ago, but I always love to show these projects on here, and every one that we do seems to be a little bit better and better. But overall, love this project. Hope you guys got something out of it. So don't forget to subscribe, like, all that stuff that every YouTuber ever says. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, guys. Peace.